Hey guys, what's going on? How you doing? Welcome to another edition of the MahoganyBooks Bookclub discussion featuring Razorblade Tears by S.A. Cosby. What's going on, everyone out there on YouTube and Facebook? Thanks for tuning in. I'm Derek Young.
Yeah, that's good.
And I got our co-host in the house today, Panama Jackson, making his dramatic entrance.
What's going on? What's going on?
What's going on?
Which is good since I picked this book.
Huh?
Which is good since I picked this book.
Okay. All right. So, again, real quick, this is our monthly book club discussion where we meet at our location here in D.C. in Anacostia to discuss a book. We've been doing this for like the past 3 or 4 years now.
2018, man.
2018?
This is the first book club meeting. So
that's 5 years?
Almost 5 years.
Wow. Okay. So 5 years now. And we've enjoyed most of the books that we've read. Mm-hmm. There's been a few duds, but really we just kind of come out to hang out, to have community, have conversations about books that we hopefully will enjoy. And it's a free space. So we want everyone's opinion, okay? No one's opinion is wrong until we say it's wrong, right? But then you, of course, get a chance to retort and defend yourself. Everyone out there that's watching us live, you can always chime in and post comments in the comment section. We're going to get going. Panama. Bro, you picked this book.
I did pick this book.
So what's going on, man? Let's talk about it.
So why did I pick this book? I picked this book because a couple months ago, I put this thing out there on Facebook where I was like, I want to start reading more fiction books. I need a book to read. This book was the most highly recommended book by the various assortment of Negroes who responded. So literally like every third person mentioned this book, which is crazy because I never even heard of this book before. I never heard of the author. Obviously no shade to him. Like that's on me, clearly. But I never even heard of him before. So I was like, I'm going to go ahead and pick up this book. And then we started talking about books for the book club. I was like, let's do this book. Couldn't be happier. This book was a cinematic thrill ride a bizarre ride to the far side. I really did. At first, I didn't enjoy it. I gotta be honest.
Me too.
At first, I was like, this book is slow as hell. I do not know why everybody loved this book. I told you around chapter 7, that joint picked up and it was like, all right, we out. This joint pulled out doing like 100 miles an hour, did not slow down. We got racism. We got kidnap, murder, mayhem. Like, this is like a Quentin Tarantino story, the amount of blood that he wrote about. I was like, wow, we really got all the facets of some true-to-life shenanigans. And I enjoyed it. And I even listened to the audiobook. Anybody listen to the audiobook?
Yeah.
It was funny because the black dude read the book, but he was doing like the white dude's parts with like this very... So it was funny because like, he was reading it like black people read white people, but with like a country accent, like, hey man, you know, like, and I was like, okay, I like this. I'm here for this. I really enjoyed this book. And I'm not even gonna say I enjoyed it for like the writing aspect. I just enjoyed it because it was with the shits the whole time. Excuse my French. It was with it the whole time, and I enjoyed that.
Yeah. It was definitely a great book. It's definitely something I've not read a book like this.
Maybe want to read the rest of his books. He's another one like Black Top Wasteland. Yeah. I have that book. I'm about to crack that joint open.
Yeah, so I made a mistake. I thought this was his debut book, but it's not. His first book was Black Top Wasteland. So, yeah. Who else want to jump in? And thoughts?
Did anybody else finish this book?
Yeah.
Did you just finish it?
I just finished it.
You finished it?
Yeah, I read out the book the first night that I read it.
Oh, really?
Wow.
So why am I being quiet? Listen, I was over here like, could Sam Jackson play this? Like, I'm trying to figure the movie. Like, I'm visualizing. Like, I'm trying to figure out who is my black man. It's like, is it Ving Rhames because he's younger? Like, Sam Jackson a little old? Is he like 71 or 72 years old now? I was trying to visualize who's gonna play the roles. I was like, where's the book deal for this?
Yeah, this is great. Yeah.
It was phenomenal.
And I think it brought up so many different topics in this book. So even though it was very entertaining, it did it gave me a chance to kind of reflect. And especially with homophobia in the Black community, I thought that was just like such an interesting thing. I think I was also like mad at the main character at one point because I'm like, it's great that you're doing all of this now, but you wasted so much time, right? And it's like, I wish you kind of learned these lessons earlier.
They acknowledge it. The whole book is an acknowledgement of that, right? The whole thing. And see, it's funny you say the black community. I'm like, this is like a class thing, right? Like, this is a country. This is like, we don't mess with this as a rule in certain communities as whole, because nobody liked it, right? Everybody thought there was something wrong with them. Like this is in Virginia, so like Richmond, Virginia, like everybody was like beefing with this.
Even his mom, right? So Derek, the white husband of the son who got killed as well, his mom like didn't even come to the funeral and hadn't seen her son in years, and it was just mind-boggling. She was like, right, looking down on him still, even though he was in the grave. Like, at least, Buddy Lee and I tried to kind of reconcile with how terrible they treated their sons. It's like she had no real remorse, just came to see if it was like true or not, and then left the grave.
And the whole time it was her husband.
Right.
Okay, so I got two things. Because I saw that coming right away.
Did you?
Yes.
What? How?
Halfway through chapter 26, 27, when the white mom came to Buddy Lee's
Hospital bed.
to his trailer, and she left the party like, there's people out here making these like racist jokes, and like no one was like, as soon as I'm like, okay, a shady person on the phone acting all powerful, and this dude now wants to become governor. Like, to me, that was.
I thought it was gonna be like some new rapper that was in there. Like I really thought it was gonna be like a black boss. Like I thought it was gonna be like
I saw that coming.
I saw this more cradle to the grave kind of, like as opposed to whatever the white version of that is.
I saw that one coming.
Yeah, I know.
But I was wondering, because every time I was thinking a different place, but every time they mentioned Virginia or Richmond, it brought it back home. And I thought that was interesting because sometimes I think we tend to think like homophobia, racism is farther away from us in some more southern places. And then it hit me like, oh crap, this is my southern place. Right? Like
Richmond's the cradle of the Confederacy.
I get it. But it put it right back in my face for me how close it is to where I reside now. So that was just, I wasn't sure if that was something that resonated with anybody else, but that I felt that being a resident of Virginia, like it's just like, oh wow, yeah, this is home for me.
Well, I think what I found interesting was, I don't know, I feel like the author was partial to Buddy Lee, because I found myself by the middle of the book like, low-key, I like Buddy Lee.
He's funny. Got personality, right? It was fun.
And it was just kind of like this the matter of factness of, and there's like the matter of factness of like his whiteness and the racism that's kind of like within him. It was kind of like when he almost said nigger in the passenger seat, and then like I looked at him, he was like, "Hey, bro, this is like people talk where I'm from. My bad." Like, and it was just kind of like not you making it small, like it wasn't a big deal that you was really about to say nigger sitting next to this man. Like, and so it was just but I think that like the way that he was portrayed throughout the entire book, there's very much this kind of like the author, I think, was really want to make you like him. And
we had more fun with him. It seemed like the black dude was a straight man. Like, listen, I got a mission. My mission is death and destruction in the name of this. Buddy was like, I'm here, I'm going for this, but he had personality, he was cracking jokes. He had, He
also had nothing to lose.
Right.
So it's like
he was dying anyway, right?
Like, to have a different, and he doesn't have a family that he is still caring for. He doesn't have a job he doesn't have a job.
Right, period.
And so he, in some ways, he gets to be goofy in a way that I feel like Ike just has too much pressure on.
Yeah, Ike was trying to keep his life straight, right? And this was like he said like 15 years, I ain't done anything wrong. Like I've been this. Buddy been fucking up the whole. I'm sorry, I keep using profanity. I got you. But this book is profane. I'm sorry, this book is profane. This book is profane. I learned about murder weapons I never thought about before.
How to refertilize us.
And I'm thinking, whoa, let's slow down. Let's
right here because I don't want to make her mad at all.
And then Buddy Lee only had up to 9th grade education, so it's like, come on now, like realistically, how did y'all come up with this?
It was Ike's idea,
Right.
because of the fertilizer.
Yeah.
He was like,
Mike is a smart dude.
See, but Ike
what's
is
his face?
layered too, because he had like the green thumb. He had crafted this business for himself, had built it up, had really tried to give his life a 180 since being right. What was it? Riot. Right. And
Right,
now.
right.
Yeah.
But I thought it was funny too because he did all this work to be reformed for 15 years, and as soon as Buddy Lee got him riled up, who was it? The young teenage kid they first interrogated. He like beat him to a pulp.
But he said that he was afraid that he was gonna become that person.
Yeah.
Again.
Right.
Like once he let him
He
out.
got
Once I
taste.
do
He got
that, I'm
taste
gonna
of
be
it.
that guy again. That was his concern, and turns out he was right.
Right
A
into
man
that
has
trap.
no cut cards. He couldn't show at all.
At all.
But I appreciate that. I'm just saying, I really enjoyed that part of it.
Okay. So from a not a mystery, straight gritty, we liked the characters. I mean, I think some of the more the parts of this book that requires like some introspection and conversation about is like the homophobia, racism, specifically the homophobia was a problem, and just like how people were just, I don't even know, like it felt ugly, and how he wrote those characters and just like they don't matter. That was, I don't know, that was, I'm not quite sure the word, but
Wait, like what characters? Like who didn't
I
matter?
mean, everyone. Like, so when I think about Rare Breed, when I think about Ike and Buddy Lee, when I think about what was the mom's name?
Maya.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
Christine.
Yeah.
Christine, yeah.
And then the judges, her husband, like all of them just they were like very set in the fact that, even a barbershop scene, right?
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
it was, this is just abhorrent and it should not happen. Like that just really, it put it right in your face, right? And that was tough to read, but I think it also reminded you there are really some ignorant ass people, now I'm ready to curse too, who think
I'll
like
do it
that,
for everybody.
right?
But they also had the scene in the bar where you got all these people giving it back. Like it's kind of like one of the, like a sociology experiment, right? Like you got all the outside pressures of the community that they're in, the way out. Like it's a very conservative ethos, right? Like we're very anti-gay, anti-LGBTQ, all that stuff, right? But then when they go inside they go in Garland's, they go in there and they start having conversations with the bartender who is explaining things and like these dudes had a redemptive arc. I mean, they got mad at people for using words. Like by the time they get to the end, his brother starts to use the F word and he's like, he cracks him over the face, right? He's like, yo, you're not doing that for him. I've done it enough. We're not doing that no more. Like, by the end of the book, Tangerine is over here working with Ike, and
Which is crazy.
she got a job, and that's the homie, and they all close, and she's part of the family now, right? So there's redemption. It's too late. It's at the cost of family and everything, but
Yeah, no, and I don't mean it in terms of the as a, I don't know the right way, like as a being a problem for the main characters. I mean, it just like put right in front of you how like nasty people are towards other people.
yeah.
Right. That was the thing that this book did for me. Like there's an issue, whether it's black folk towards being homophobic, like it was just there. And I just think that was something that you have to confront, and part of this book be part of the conversation.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised. So, like I said, this was a very highly recommended book that's how we ended up here, right? Like everybody, so many people have read this book, and I was kind of surprised when I read it. I was like, this is interesting that so many people I know are like, yo, this is the book. Like, this is the one. You got to read this book. This is an amazing book. Because I was surprised that you're making a very interesting face. Go ahead. What's your take?
I was listening.
So you told me before, like last week, that you didn't really like this book, or you did at that point. I don't know if that changed.
I said I did not like how it was written. it's the way that it was written. I don't know. We just came off of Zora Neale Hurston, which is very poetic, into this, and it was I just didn't get it. Like a lot of times, I think things went over my head, and I think this is just not my genre. So I think I just had to be like, it's okay. But there was just I feel like there were metaphors that I didn't understand what was like being described. So that's it though. Like that was my only thing. Let me see if I can find an example.
Yeah,
I think that was like some of the best parts though, especially when it comes to the title of the book, The Razorblade Tears, and how at first when he was crying, who was crying? I think it was Ike when he was crying. They felt like razorblade tears, but then by the end, they've come through this great journey.
Mm-hmm.
It feels more like cathartic, like just rain falling on his face instead of the razorblade tears.
So they actually said that in there?
Yeah.
Man, you know I missed that? I was trying to find the word razorblade tears in there
Pretty
somewhere.
early.
It was very early.
I was looking for that. I was like, where are the razorblade tears? I was like, is this just another
Chapter 5 or
boy?
something, you know, very, very early.
I remember it was in chapter 7 when I was
when he
invested.
was drunk and he he like was having those nightmares and started crying, and that's when they described the razorblade tears, because he was like almost like talking. I imagine him talking to himself in the mirror. That's not what the book said, but and like condemning himself, and the tears. You know,
That's
were, like,
something I liked how the book. Ike doesn't say a lot, but we got to experience a lot of what was going on inside of Ike, and I liked that, like getting to experience this Black man's sorrow, right, and giving words to it in a way in which I think it's not often given those words. So I appreciated that. I don't think it's my genre either. It's kind of a lot for me.
What's
But I really
what genre is that, by the
like
way?
When I say genre, I just mean it's so violent. That for me, that was a lot, but I did think the writing was very good. And it was very vivid. And I'm just not trying to think about people's body parts all day, every day.
Oh, I love that.
I definitely when I was like, damn, we probably don't need all these paragraphs.
I was like tearing him up.
And you got the full max of that. Cause I feel like, I got the point already. Like, I already know how this is going.
No, I love
I
it.
started
Probably pull up on
skipping
this.
some of them. I was like,
That's
okay,
why it's like Tarantino.
I thought it was great fight scenes.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I was like, okay, movie fight scene, boom, boom, boom. I want to be able to fight like Wyatt Randolph. Like the dude can take a punch. You know what he need to do. Like he's so
And Buddy of that little switchblade.
And that came from the family. That's right.
That was his dad.
there's some bodies on that joint.
But I think the dialogue, I think, was the best part. That like I literally felt like I was watching, like I could see it. You know, when you read, you can see things, but this was different. Like I literally felt like I was watching a movie. Like the way he did the dialogue really made me. I felt like I was riding the truck with them. Every time I got in the truck, I was in the truck.
Yeah.
Like, and we're like riding down the road. Like,
I
I really felt like I was there. In a way that in other books, like you kind of like there's like imagery and all that, but you was in the room when they was in the house fighting those two young biker ones.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you was there. You was in it, and it was gruesome. I was like, damn.
I actually got scared when the lights went out. I was like, oh Lord, what's about to happen?
And I actually thought,
down that
I was like, where's my man at? Like, he got to hear all this happening. Like, why is he? But he said, I thought I was going to wait to see how this went. Like, what?
He was trying to see how
yeah.
Buddy Lee, because I think that was our first encounter where he
It was.
could actually see what Buddy Lee had up his sleeve and if he could handle his own. So when he saw he could get most of the way there, he was like, okay, I'll come to see you.
That dude has real anger issues.
I
Both of them. I'm just thinking like, and I get it. Like the scene when like his wife is being followed, right? Like I can put myself in that situation. But this dude has access, like he sees everything as a weapon. So
Literally.
whether it was a bush axe or whatever it was, I'm like, this dude, he's like very intentional about the way he inflicts violence on people. Like that's what I was getting from it. This dude was serious.
So I think for me when I was reading it, I thought a lot about the characters. Like relationship to their own like masculinity in a way.
Mm.
Because excuse me, what stood out to me when the house was on fire was like Maya's approach was, you know, saving the pictures of their son. Excuse me. And like it was just a softer approach from her perspective that the author gave, even though she was just as enraged of her son's death and his husband. Excuse me. And the other part of it was, I wonder if Buddy Lee would have gotten Ike on board if he didn't have like the racist stuff at the grave, and it was just more of like the homophobia part of it, the homophobic part of it. So it's just like kind of like digging at each character's like push points for like the toxic masculine traits to come out, because there was also a part where I forget who said it, but I forget which son, but there was a part that one of them said, "Oh, my son would have forgiven you," or something like that.
It was
Yeah,
Ike,
so it was just like that back and forth of like the different ways they handled their rage stood out to me. Like all the characters.
It's actually interesting. Like, so Buddy Lee destroyed the graves to get Ike on board.
Yeah.
So Buddy Lee was basically just going on a suicide mission. Like,
Yeah.
I don't have nothing to live for. I'm gonna go try to take these folks out. But during the process of that, he caught into like a purpose.
He did.
Right?
Yeah.
Like he found a purpose. They both like, we're gonna ride, we're gonna do this thing to the very end. Like however that ends, we're gonna do it, blah, blah, blah. So it is actually interesting because he was just like he didn't have nothing else to do. And the police aren't gonna figure this out, so I'm just gonna go ahead and do this. But I need this dude to do it with me. So it is surprising that
But how did you know? I think that was the part that confused me. Like, what do you know about Ike?
It was his tattoos at the funeral.
Okay.
Well, he knows that he's about that life.
But then from the tattoos, when he saw his tattoos at the funeral, he was asking him all those weird questions.
Yeah. Okay, now
he was like, "Oh, you got that ink from?" Yeah, he was like, "You had to have been in prison to get that ink."
But I'm more surprised. How did you know that was going to make Ike be willing to go through all the rest of it?
Yeah.
Like to be willing to get on board with going on this potential suicide mission to solve this case.
I think because that's what would have done it for him. I think like the one thing they had in common was the regret about the way that the relationship with their children ended. So he literally was like, "This is what would do it for me." Like writing the F word, writing the N word. He was like, "This is what would get me to come," and that's what would get Ike. Because that was their one commonality, was the way that they loved their sons and ruined their relationship because they didn't accept them.
Buddy also had that special power where he could tell like other people's tell, right? Like they're lying.
Yeah.
So I think he probably could tell in Ike's demeanor that he was holding back this like rage monster in there. And that's why he kept probing him with the little stuff. And then he was like, "Well, let me just see what happens when I do this and see if I can get that guy to come out."
I do think
he got lucky.
I mean, he did get kind of lucky, but again, he kind of had that sixth sense, that intuition of people's tell. So he was, a little mixture of luck and talent.
Have y'all talked about this cover and all this?
Oh.
So when I read this book because Roxanne Gay said this is her #1 favorite book of like last year.
Wow.
Oh yeah. This was like. So I would have never, ever picked this up. But then when she said it, everything she reads, I like. And I normally read everything she says. But I looked at this cover. This look real white to me.
Yeah, which one?
This man, just period. And then I was thinking, I know Roxanne ain't, because I read everything she says, right? I know she ain't saying my favorite book of 2022 is a white book. So I got it from the library, because I was like, I ain't reading no white. I ain't spending no money on no white book.
This is a white man.
That's what I'm saying.
But look at it. I mean, this look like a white book. Don't it? This look like
the little tiny bit on the right.
But see, y'all looking for this is glances.
Maybe these were their sons.
It's Derek and Buddy.
Right, it's Derek.
They both look white, yeah.
This look white. This whole book cover. That's why I went to the library, because I wasn't spending a dime on a white book. But then I'm like,
This is them after they vaporized them people.
Right.
yeah.
But in terms of, But once you start reading it,
Oh, I loved it.
Okay.
Like she said, I felt like I was there for something about this, which made me nervous because this felt very familiar. You know how people are able to bring you into
Yeah.
something and you feel like you know the folks. She did a great job of that to me. Even when they were walking down those roads and all that, just because I'm a country girl, I felt all that in the house, all that. I just thought it was excellent, and I wasn't expecting that. You know, the commonality was their sons who were gay. All that threw me for a loop. I didn't know what to expect, but that wasn't what it was. But I loved it because I was like, I know she wouldn't recommend a white book.
Well, it's all kinds of
But
weird
this
things
is
too.
good.
Because, you know, they were both gay, but the point why they got killed was that they were trying to bring awareness to this story, which was an important LGBTQ story. That community, like the son Isaiah, he worked for this really small newspaper that was, what was the name? It was something, and Buddy Lee
Rainbow
said,
something
like this,
that.
of course, this is where they worked. Like it had a bigger size, something. I really liked when they did that part too, because the editor in chief, I think her name was Amelia. She was a cool little insert character to put them on the journey. But yeah, it was part of this bigger story. So I feel like, you know, everything was connected starting from the beginning. And I think, I don't know who else could have gone on this journey. Or what would have happened. Like, would the guy would still be the sitting judge? Would the other guy still be the governor? Was he running for the governor?
You know,
I really, the reason why I cried at the end, and I'm just going back to a point you made earlier, wasn't because Buddy Lee died and I liked him as a character. I think by the end, Buddy Lee realized he had more to live for. And at that point, it was too late for him. And I think that was the piece that had me in tears, right? So I just wanted to add to that point because I thought that was a good point to make.
I feel bad because you said that you cried at the end, but I feel like I found what irritated me about the story.
Go ahead.
Page 37. On
go.
page 37, it says Ike pulled out his phone and sat it on the table. So they're eating. I think they're in Richmond. And then on page 38, it says Ike pulled his phone out of his pocket and placed it on the table.
That
So
pissed me
it
off,
was
too.
stuff like that that kept like, I was like, wait, I kept having to go back and like be like, oh, this is just a typo. And I feel like that interrupted the flow of the story.
a couple times.
And so it's just super technical. But I was just like, was there an editor? Like, what happened?
Me too. I got caught. I was like, did he pull it out twice? Because you know it's playing as like a movie in your head, so you're like,
Does he have
you
two
do it
phones?
again?
Yeah,
Right.
I was. It was little stuff like that.
That's
and I don't read for little small details, and that's my downside. So that's stuff I would have missed.
Yeah, I didn't.
You know how people like
So caught up
in it.
Well, I get
Yeah.
pissed about that in books that are like nonfiction. Like this is a fiction book. I didn't even hear that, but like in the book, I'm not gonna say it, but in that book where they had Tupac and Biggie dying within 6 days of each other, like this is just wrong. Like that's just all out wrong. That's different. Like this, I probably would have, and I'm surprised I didn't notice that either because I'm usually pick up on stuff like that. But I don't know if that would have annoyed me in this one. I'd be like, you know what?
Yeah, I didn't notice it
Supernatural.
either, but I felt like it was, to me, like after a while, it became this is a book to read for entertainment. Like it was just a read. Like there's some movies you watch, some books you read that are just about the entertainment of it, and I think like some of that I never even noticed it. So even when you talk about the metaphors, I felt like some of it was forced, but then I was like, I don't really like the metaphors he's trying to use, so I just
Went past that part.
Like what is the action pieces? Like when's the next fight? When's the next
Well, I wonder
finger
what
being
y'all
broken?
talking about.
Well, I
This felt pretty literal for most of this to me.
He kept talking about a frog's hair all the time, and I never liked the frog's hair metaphor.
Like find his frog's hair? Is that what he said?
He was talking about they call him too much because his dick is too much for a person who's a frog's hair over 5 feet tall or something.
Well, that's country. Though.
Okay, but they used frog's hair another time. They used it a second time when they drove out of the mansion. Security. I don't see frogs, but like I don't know.
That is a point. Like, find his frog hair. I grew up with that saying. Like,
I struggled.
And I think that's what made it authentic. Because if you're a country person, you know about the frog hair.
I had to ask
And
questions.
somebody else might have missed it, but if you're a country person, you knew right what he was talking about. That's why I felt familiar.
And maybe that's why. Maybe that's because all of this is very
I'm not
As-
from the South.
Like I was even Tuskegee yesterday, whole land that Tom forgot, and it's just like, oh, we back in the
And frog hair. Like.
yeah, frog hair land, basically.
Okay,
Right.
frog's hair.
Booker T House look like they still use it, and like everybody still be there, right?
Yeah.
So, No shots out, no diss to you.
Oh, no.
Shouts out.
Hey, that's the only house about for a black person.
I was gonna say, but
they did not get burned down during that time.
Very nice house. Very nice house.
Yeah.
I feel bad for Ariana though. I'd like to see a part 2 where Ariana grows up.
They are. Did you see Colombiana? That's who Ariana grows up. She grows up to be in a house.
The way Ariana started watching Gracie's Corner on that phone when he gave her that phone, and she said was like,
She knew.
go ahead and do I'm not even gonna. Let me just put on Gracie's Corner. And
She's like 4, right? She's
Yeah, she's
like,
like 3.
Oh, she's bad young.
Yeah,
She's not gonna remember
very
most of this stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, she will.
You think she gonna remember all
That's
the
exactly how trauma works.
And she has been through a traumatic ride from the death of both of her fathers all through.
Yeah. I mean, she got dropped in a bunker and they blown up above her head. Like,
Not only that, the
that
guy
was
pointed
wild.
the
And
gun
then
to
a gun put a
her.
gun to her head. Somebody had her on a pallet.
That
Like,
poor
I saw the
girl.
pallet.
I
It
was-
was like
I was
episode of
feeling it
SVU.
for
She
Ariana,
down there on
too.
the pallet.
That little girl.
This was definitely like the longest episode of SVU ever.
It was good.
When they shot Tangi's mom,
Oh,
she was so just happy making drinks, and they blew her.
Yeah, but you knew she was gonna die.
I mean,
She kind of just floated in like, I'm just bringing drinks, so she's out of here. She's out. She's not making
One for the body count.
She's not making it.
That's what I think like also stood out to me in the book is like the selfishness of the characters that I think is kind of like we look at it through this like pursuit of justice through the way that it's told, but putting the granddaughter through all that stress and all that stuff, putting the wife, putting family members, so on and so forth. And then the part that kind of tied that in for me was when Buddy Lee like let Maya go to the house that was on fire, even though he clearly said it was a trap. Like that made me question his respect for Ike and the family, because I feel like someone who truly would have respected Ike wouldn't have let his wife and granddaughter step into like literal danger.
You think he had? I think she was going with
And I thought he
her.
felt like, it's either you go with me and I can protect you. Like,
And that's
that's how I viewed it.
But like I also like so I was going back and forth with that because I just feel like obviously if it would have been Ike, it would have turned out differently. But there was just something about it that was just really like I don't know. There was something that I picked up with both of them that was just kind of selfish throughout the book.
But I
That's
don't view
just
this
my
as this
opinion.
wasn't about justice. This was a pure revenge.
Yeah.
Like I didn't view this as a justice mission at all. This was
It was all about
Yeah.
it's a
It was making them feel, making them feel better.
100%. And let's go kill the people that killed our kids. And
Period.
if we don't make it out of this, that's fine because we're going down in the blaze of glory. Like the redemption, like I do think there was a redemptive arc at the end, but it was more about them learning about how terrible as parents they were and how much time they lost and all of that other stuff. But I feel like that was almost like a side effect of them
Their mission.
of their mission, right? The stuff that they had to do in order to find, like the places they had to be, the people they had to talk to, the stuff they had to do to get there.
I love that every time they went to the gay bar, they went to his job, they knew them. They were like, "Oh, he told us about you. He told us y'all didn't even speak." And they every step of the way it threw it back in. It threw it back in their faces. Yeah, it was like, "What are y'all doing here? Like y'all are the ones coming to ask us questions. Like where y'all been?" And I think they needed that. I think that was part of the whole thing. Like every step of the way, everybody knew. They went to the table at the gay bar and they were like, "Oh, you're the dads?" Like everybody was surprised. Like, what are y'all doing here? So it was good that it was thrown in their face every second.
I agree. It was definitely a wake-up call and kind of, I feel like, a warning to some people who aren't accepting of their children, because your child is still going to thrive without you. Derek and Isaiah were thriving, thriving, and they had their own family that they chose, and unfortunately, they got into this mess. And so that's just a wake-up call to these parents. Like, yeah, you might have treated them like crap, but at the end of the day, your child's still going to thrive. And how are you going to feel at the end of the day when one of us or both of us are in the grave? So.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what scene it was when that was, it was pretty much the same thing being said. It was like, but this was, it was Buddy Lee talking to his wife. I just keep forgetting her name.
Christine.
Like she was like, I didn't know this was gonna be the last time I ever spoke to him. He called her
Yeah.
and was like, she didn't answer. She was like, I didn't know this was gonna be the last time I ever had a chance to talk to him. And he's like you never know that.
Right.
But again, that's why this thing is so, I guess the piece, like it was front and center the way that people in their homophobic ways, like, is BS. Because like he said, I would much rather him be here with me now. I don't care about who he's sleeping with.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I want my son here with me. Like that was the emotional piece of it that I think allowed them to be selfish, because it was all about, they were carrying a lot of people's guilt, right? Like Maya was like, the scene when she was like, so what you want? Basically, like, what you want?
Right. She said
So
she was okay with him going there. She did him the war. She was like,
you done did all that work before. Your son got killed, and you just want to sit here?
I knew that was coming too. I could tell. I was like, I bet
Okay.
she was like,
right. Smoking her little cigarette.
you don't gotta tell me nothing, but you make sure you take care of this. Like, go
Like,
be.
do what you do.
I think in my head, Maya had so much power, like influence over Ike. And so for me, it was just so interesting that she couldn't mend that relationship for him with his son while he was alive. And I'm just like, I don't know. She just comes off as a woman that knows how to like get her man to see a different point of view. And like, I was just so surprised that for so many years, she couldn't do anything about
But
it.
I think she tried. But I
That's
think she
ignorance, especially in our
tried.
community.
But there's something about like I think about my own parents, that like when my mother's trying to get my dad to do something, she doesn't like tell him. She just like makes side comments, right? and I mean, he was kind of look at her, and like it might take him a while to get to the place. So I think she was just kind of like waiting for it. And for him, he had more of like a don't ask, don't tell. And he would try to have a relationship with him, but you can't do that without accepting his life. And so then it's like they throw him the graduation barbecue, and he's like, I want you to meet. He's just like, no, like now we don't spill the food on the floor, like I can't eat, right? Because you got so dysregulated because he tried to bring this person that he loves to you. And it's just kind of one of those things where I think women, I think in particular Black women in relationship with Black men, you know him, and so you have to know like how to maneuver around him to influence him, and you have to know when something is like really germane to like his spirit, that you can't just like tell him, and you can like mention it and just kind of like try to massage it until it gets there. But this one was, again, in the region,
he's not gonna do it.
definitely not gonna do it.
But she kind of told him. Did Black Cake have us thinking like this? The dad and the daughter was like beefing because of
Her
like,
sexuality.
like he had his pride, like he could, like he went to New York, was like stalking her or something like that. He was trying to but his pride wouldn't let him.
Yeah.
And there's something like, y'all Black men and their sons, or men and their sons, around like this idea of like legacy, and like what does it say about me if my son is gay? Like I had one of my friends tell me to my face that he would rather his son be a bum than be gay. Like he was like, I don't care.
And they said that in here too, though.
And he was just like, I was like, you be cured for cancer, and that's he's like, I don't care. He have no job, live in my basement the rest of his life. I was like, okay.
Yeah, Isaiah said something. I think Ike, when we were gay, and Ike's head a couple of times, and Isaiah, I think he said it after the graduation, but he was like, it has nothing to do with you, and I'm gonna love who I love regardless of you. So,
But Isaiah and Derek were not passive. They were not allowing you in their life if you didn't accept them fully. So like that scene at the barbecue, he was going to him. He's like, this is who I love. This is who I'm going to marry. Like he was not going to tolerate his intolerance or just him ignoring it. Like they were in their face. Like, you're going to accept me. This is what I want. Like, because some people will just be like, fine, I won't bring them around. I'd rather be at Christmas. I'd rather be at Christmas with my parents than with my arguing about my partner. I'll see my partner tomorrow. But Isaiah and Derek were like, no, like, accept us or I'm not going to be around you.
What I will say too is there was one, like, the whole thing, like, Black men understand racism, we don't understand sexism, right? Like we have those things, which came up in this, not directly, but I could explain why Buddy Lee don't want his life to a T.
Yeah.
Like, you got to deal with this, you got to deal with this, you got to deal with this, you got to deal with this stuff, you got to deal with this. But he struggled to understand when the guys in the bar were explaining to him like what life was like, or was it Tex or Rex?
It was
The
Tex.
bartender was explaining. Yeah, it was explaining something to him. Some of that just didn't click. It's like you have a very clear understanding of being marginalized. Like this is very, very clear, but you can't see outside yourself. So that was one space I was like, oh yeah, here we go. This is because I do know a lot of men doing stuff like this. We argue about this in our group chats all the time with those of us who view ourselves as enlightened, trying to argue with the ones who ain't. Yeah, we have these.
What are you holding in?
Go ahead. Speak your piece, brother.
We rocking this.
It's not a black male thing.
No.
It's not. It's a human thing.
It is.
Because white Christians, they feel victimized all the time.
Yeah.
But they victimize
White
most
people love to
people
be oppressed.
constantly.
They love to cry.
Right?
They love.
No, I mean it's a human thing. We as humans are very narrow-minded and selfish.
And I think the book does a good job of kind of showing that to you, right? Because you're saying like it's throwing it in your face, it's throwing it in your face. And I think that's what I enjoyed about the book is like both of these people had to open their minds and see other perspectives outside of themselves. Mm-hmm. And so many people are like, the two of them go on that journey, but even Christine by the end is starting to realize like, I wasted all of this time because I couldn't accept this person for who they were. Right. And even Buddy Lee and Ike in their relationship, right? Like I get an understanding, like, no, I'm not black, but now I have a better understanding. And so I thought this was great.
I think it's a human issue of learning empathy and sympathy for your
I'm gonna push back on this right here, buddy. No, I don't disagree with you. I also disagree with you because I do think, like black men, when it comes to black women in particular, we have a very, very short memory or idea when it comes to like the oppression being faced. Like we are very understanding of racism towards black men. Yeah. It's like so. One of my favorite, like one of the best titles I've ever seen in my life. It's like the Black Womanist Blues. Like what? All the fuck this up. All the men are, or all the blacks are men, all the women are white, or something like that. I gotta find it. But it was like it so clearly demonstrates how we view like sexism and racism. So like when we're talking about racism, we're always talking about black men. Right, when we talk about like sexism, it's always like white women, like black women get like left out of all these conversations. So that's what I'm talking about directly. Because most of the conversations I have with black men, I actually don't know any white dudes that have a conversation with about the way that black women get oppressed and stuff like that. So while there are other communities that deal with this, I think internally black men struggle with the understanding of the sexism that black women deal with.
I hear you. I do agree that there are people. Men who are just, but see, to me, this comes back to the empathy thing. I don't think black men do it more so than any other group. Because I think everyone is doing it. I think it does require a person to stop and think.
But that's the point, though. Like to say that we don't do it more than anybody else, like that kind of like, but we still do it.
No,
right?
no. It's like, the point
You're saying it's a human problem.
I'm saying it's a human thing. And I'm saying shit don't get done or changed until people realize that people are people and respect people for people. Like simply, point blank, I don't care what your role, any of that crap. You know what I'm saying? I just think when we get past that, it becomes a lot easier. I do think, like, and that's why, so when we read books by women, I'm very interested in reading books by women. We read Zora Neale Hurston, and I'm sitting here like, give me this additional viewpoint into how and why. Jamie's story was impactful for me to see a woman in that book to be marginalized and just your trophy set on the shelf.
Yeah. I think the point is that a lot of black men are not doing what you're describing. Yeah. Not all, not like most even is what I would say, but a lot of black men are not trying to understand patriarchy and how and what they miss about it. They're not reading or listening like to us in a way that shows us that they're trying to hear and learn in the way that you're describing. Yeah. So in that sense, black women need to, because of our social location, we do need to understand what black men are experiencing and what we're experiencing and what's going on around us. And some black men allow themselves to not understand us.
and Derek, I don't know nothing about white men. I ain't gonna say I don't know. I don't. They ain't my focus. But I'm saying for black men, I'm agreeing with her, and it's not a bad thing. It feels like black men are so into their thing. It's so hard, and I don't know about what. I don't want to compare it to nobody else because
I mean, I think that's.
Have y'all read
Black boys and black like the
Have y'all read Song of
our
Solomon?
survival.
Anybody read? So you guys finished Song of Solomon. So Milkman, y'all read that? Okay, so you see how Milkman, the whole world revolved around him. Remember, and then when his sister never spoke the first time she spoke in the book, she said, "When you slept, we had to be quiet." Everything we did, and he was like, It's such a thing of privilege.
It's not even intentional.
It's not intentional.
It's just
He said my aunt, she was the first person that did a boiled egg for me. She was the first person, and I was willing to steal from her. Like that realization is that I've been taking from everybody. And I haven't been given anything. But
dudes, you know, and I guarantee you know dudes who said this, who it took having a daughter for us to understand that you can't be a trash person to women. You know men who said this. I guarantee
You never heard that?
I guarantee maybe not in that exact term, but we all so many of us be like that. Be like when I had a daughter, it was, and I don't. It's not. It's like I'm not trying to be the. I'm not. This is what we got accused of VSB all the years of pandering to black women, right? Like, and it's not that I pander. I actually like black women. Like, I actually see right? So it's not like
just to do it, right?
Yeah,
You was like you weren't just trying to have.
Yeah, women, right? Like it's like so when you and I feel like I've had this conversation with some dudes that I know, and I'm just like, I don't think you actually like women.
Yeah.
Like it sounds like you genuinely.
I feel we are unlike.
Yeah,
I do.
And again, I'm not like, and I don't have conversations with white. I'm assuming white men are the worst at this above all else, right?
Yeah, and that's why I said I think it happens from culture to culture to culture, no matter what we right. Like we don't talk about it because we're black, right? But I've definitely talked to Asian women who could talk about this with Asian men, right? And experience the same thing. And I believe white women can say the same thing about white men, right? And so I think I agree with you that it really is a
you're
human.
Not wrong.
Yeah.
It just obscures the point, which I think is like for our community, like if it's a community issue that we're talking about, focusing on what other we're not worse than other people doesn't mean that there's not bad things happening.
Yeah. Right.
It's just that it's not. It's like, listen, we're just being men, which is kind of the problem.
Yeah. So I hear you. I do have a sensitivity to, because to me, that's an issue of, there's a proximity to power, right? I did not grow up with that kind of proximity to power. I was not one of those boys who grew up like being able to dominate other people, right? I was in a position where I had to make space for other individuals. So it always kind of, and I know guys who are like that. Like my friends, we grew up in a way where, okay, your mom was a figure. You just talked about when you want your husband to say something, to do something, I'm going to, there's a certain way you handle it. My grandmother, my aunt, my mom, my wife, my sister, all of them are strong women. I understand that proximity to power gives people blinds them to how they treat other individuals. But it's hard for me to accept that black men specifically, they are toxic black men. I'm not disputing that. Is it an issue? Yes. I also know that I speak with and converse and in my circle, a lot of black men who are not that.
Can I give you an example, if you don't mind?
Yes.
Because what you are speaking of directly is that you have surrounded yourself by people who ain't trash. And what that does, so I went to Morehouse. Right? I mean, that's we all have stories the problem is my best friend, these are my best friends. Two of them have PhDs. We're all business owners. Everybody is super successful and reasonable human beings. I know like the two black, like actual like pediatric neuroscientists in America are good friends of mine. We were in a summer program together, right? Like I know like my group of people are very educated and very well successful by all metrics, whatever. So then I think I'm at this point where I'm not actually impressed by impressive shit anymore, right? Because this is like, whatever, I'm so used to this kind of stuff. But then I go home and I'm around a bunch of people who are like, man, you know somebody who does this? Like my world, my bubble looks completely different than the real world. The people that I have around me have obscured what the rest of the world looks like. So then I have the privilege of thinking that my world looks like XYZ, and it does not. My wife, I hope she's not watching this because I'm about to throw her under the bus.
Oh, no.
My wife is from Ghana, and she's from like the well-to-do part of Ghana, right? So we have this issue, not well-to-do part of Ghana, like she just grew up in like well-to-do circles, right? We had this conversation where this should be all her homies on Instagram and stuff like that, all the rich people. So she think everybody in Ghana is well off. I'm like, fam, that's not the case. The circle that you were a part of is all the well. You like all the well-to-do people. The rest of the country is not. As soon as we got to Ghana, what happened? You see all the poor people running around trying to get money.
Why didn't they tell us that? Because I just went to Ghana and I was like, if your wife is describing her experience, because everyone that told me to go to Ghana loved that part. Your wife wouldn't
but
tell
you
you.
probably also experienced the version of Ghana that she did. Because you were over there as an American with money. You were at Labadi Beach.
Yes. But I had to drive
People have the bubble that believe that that's what the world looks like. Hey,
I hear you.
if you go on social media, that's why women be like take microphones away from men. They tired of men podcasting, right? That's a movement. Because like every guy who gets on these. So Kevin Samuels, there's more Kevin Samuel acolytes than there are.
So here's the thing. I don't think. So here's the thing. I hear you. It's not to minimize toxicity that's out there. It's not to minimize bad people. But I feel like there is also this easy jump to vilify Black men at large.
Yes.
And that's a problem for me because one, do we need to do more work? Yes. I'm an advocate for these books that talk about men.
White people. We are so fine doing that to white people.
Hold on, right. That's my point. It's not sitting here. No. When we sit here and we talk about this, the same issues that if I'm feeling like a certain way about how a Black woman talking to me about my shit, I need to be able to put myself in the same position with a white person when I'm talking to them about how they victimize other people, right? And that's to me the thing about creating more empathy and sympathy towards other people. If we start humanizing the issue, that you have to just do the work. If you're a trash person, yes, I don't associate with trash people. I don't. I can't. That's not my circle. That's how I was raised.
But it's also self-attrition, bro. Yeah. That's over time. Like it's some of the people that you've lost were probably some trash, like because we've all been there, right? You've managed to curate your space to be one that makes conversations like this seem like you're oversimplifying, you're overstating, it's not accurate. When the truth is, almost every woman in here is probably going to be able to tell you about the legions of trash men they've had to deal with.
But Black men deal with bad women as well. So it's not. So
this comes to your power structure, though. This comes back to your
power structure. Just deal with trash people.
I need to take a lap.
No, I agree. But I agree with you, right? It's a people problem. I think the reason it is so big in the Black community is because everywhere we turn, Black men are telling us they don't want us, and they're telling us why we're not worthy. They're telling us what's wrong with us, and why they prefer other women. White men beat their wives in private, and we don't see that on TikTok or Instagram. They do it in private, and that's their business. We don't hear about it. But Black men will get on a podcast and get on a TikTok and say, "Oh, well, she deserved it. Megan Thee Stallion deserved it." You don't see that. You don't see that in the white community.
I think overall,
I guarantee this was not one of the questions.
This is like the center of the conversation.
Back what she's saying, she's right. It feels we're feeling. I didn't realize there's a lot of books I read lately that the feminist book that kept saying that like we're not feeling loved by black men. Oh, even in Black Women Will Save the World. When she gets to the end about Keisha Lance Bottom, her statement was that, a lot of the wrong that's been done to me were by black men in her professional career. So it's that feeling of unloved. And then I think men, and all the men I know who do it, who are my friends, who are trash, don't know they're trash.
Yeah.
They can't see outside of that bubble. Like we were saying, that male bubble. They think they can't see it. I'm like, you sleeping with 20 women at one time.
I think it's
You don't
more
think
than
that's bad?
that, though.
What's bad about
I
it?
think if we track it back, I think the weight of racism and oppression for black men is so daunting. Like it's such a daunting experience that no one's had time to really, and the pace of the way the history of black people in America has gone, there hasn't really been time for us to like sit down and like commiserate about our experiences. And I think a lot of times, so when we think about how we construct manhood in America, men are meant to produce like tangible things, money, house, whatever, right? And having access to those things is what makes you a man. And if you talk to black men, they'll say things like, black women are outpacing black men in all these places that matter to them. We're the most educated now. We have the most entrepreneurship, right? And when we think about, even in times before, they'll be like, black men were unemployed and black women were working, right? They don't think about the part of that when black women were domestic workers, they were getting raped in those houses. All they know is that black women were the breadwinners, right? Because they were able to work, because white men weren't afraid of them, so they were able to access resources. And I think jealousy is not a good word. I think there's something that happened during that in that time post-Reconstruction to maybe like the 70s, 80s, around like black men thought they were being left out of this very, very important thing, and that white people like let black women into these spaces, which is true because we're women. There are places that they let us kind of like come in there, and so
white women date them out.
And we are catching hell in the space.
Right.
They don't realize that.
Right, but I don't think it's just a bubble around.
Yeah,
I mean,
what you're pointing out is how nuanced all this is, right? Like it's so. Again, you're right. It's not as cut and dry as it gets made out to be. That's a fact. Like we do lump everybody. That was my point about like we do it to white people, right? Like white community, like the white people are all whatever. We literally do that. And the difference is, even if you humanize, this is gonna sound so crazy, like you humanize a white friend and you take them as an individual, that still doesn't change the fact that the larger community is still oppressing your ass like with like fervor. Like actually it still exists. Like that still is something that's happening.
Right. But you still have to deal with that person as an individual.
You do. So you try your best not to turn that one person into all the problems of the community.
Right.
But when that person treats you like the rest of the community, you're also not surprised by it, right? So it's like all black men are not the problem.
No.
But when a black man treats you, so when a black man treats you like the rest of them that you think, it's like vindicating, like, you're still a black man, like you still default to
I'm sorry.
Ahead,
I feel like part of the argument though is like, let's forget the man-woman thing. I think in the book when they were in Garland's and Tex has the whole story about the black person that he knows that grew up in the South who was gay and like that person's story, I think Ike immediately was like, so are you trying to say being black is like being gay? Because being black is way worse.
Being gay is worse.
Yeah, and then I think Tex was like, that's not what I'm saying. Like, you just made it about you. Like, you came into our space. You're in Garland's right now.
Right.
You're beating up people.
Right.
You're, like, doing all of this. Like, only you have the audacity to do that. And I feel like that is a conversation that black men need to have with other black men. And that has nothing to do with women. That has nothing to do with anybody else.
And that's why I'm saying that, because he has the issue. Ike has the issue. And to turn it into what did someone say, the Victim Olympics or whatever?
Yeah.
Oppression Olympics.
Right, Oppression Olympics. That's the issue. Like, everyone's trying to out-trauma the next person. And everyone is dealing with trauma, right? Everyone has a bad day, right? And let's just deal with people as people. Because if we try to make it, if we try to continue to be selfish and not focus on being selfless, I can't see you for the woman that she is. I can't deal with her with what she's struggling with. So that's why I'm saying that, is that when we have these conversations, I'm trying to remove it from the the different roles of gender, race, or ethnicity, religion, all this stuff plays on it, because I just need you to see the person. So that's for me, that's where I'm at with it, because otherwise I'm gonna just revert to, oh, well, you know, as a black man, blah, 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 blah. They keep calling me this and saying this. Like, that's not an issue.
And I think that's the point Cosby was trying to get to in the end, right? Like, through these characters and through their experience.
This Cosby.
So we know.
Oh my God. It's going to it's a little hot.
Sorry.
But I think that's the point that he was trying to get to in the end, through these characters and their experiences, right? That, yes, it's easy for us to look at it. And I think that whole scene with Tex and Ike was just amazing to see, because Ike is very much like, well, this is what's happening to me, and this is what I'm going through. And it's like, that's great that you're going through it. Congrats. But here's my story, right? And I think that's what the author is trying to help everybody understand, that there are so many people with so many different, I think I never understood the white poor man's plight, right? I never understood it. And Buddy Lee is helping me see something that I never really figured out. With
We are not empathizing with Buddy Lee. We are not me. I'm a Buddy Lee fan club.
So it's just interesting.
Especially if you live around here, you don't see white.
You don't see
more
White people, not around here.
Go to Ohio.
I agree.
They all live across the road around here.
I agree with you, and I think like it's through the lens of like grief, and I think that's a big part of the book. And even what we're all talking about right now is just like individual, collective grief and trauma. When you're moving through that, when you're moving through your life, like just always kind of, I don't like to use the word stuck, but that's what you're seeing everything through. Of like, well, this happened to me and not you, and it's this group and whatever. It's like it's really difficult to navigate grief, and a lot of, quite frankly, like with these two characters, like remorse or regret.
One of the things that, and this is, so me and my homeboy, my best friend since like high school, one of the things we're not doing it tomorrow because both our teams are trash now, but normally every year, like he's a UNC fan, I'm a Duke fan, right? So last game.
It's important. This is important.
Being from North Carolina, you hear UNC and Duke, and you're just like, okay. We're listening.
Black male fans in existence.
There's more of us. There's a little fan club. I'm a starter
They know about that
Facebook
life.
group. But so end of the year they do their big rivalry game, right? So normally we always go out to a restaurant, like get some beer, get some drinks, eat, and just chill and kick it. And during these times, like we've been doing this for a while, most of these have now happened since we've been married. I've been married for almost 21 years. He'll be like 15 or 16 years this year, something like that. And we inevitably got to the place where we started talking about our relationships. And what was very interesting, and I know women do this almost all the time.
Some women, you can't do that. You
Yes,
can't
you're right. Guys don't normally have that type of relationship with other guys. And we started having these conversations. We started having these conversations, and what we realized was, wow, the ability for us to talk about these similar circumstances made what we thought was like highly volatile, like I won't say bad things, but that made the situation seem tough in our relationship. It wasn't as tough when I realized, oh, yo, your wife crazy too?
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's not just mine. Right? And so my wife knows by now, like she laughs at us because it's us having a chance to like let some of that go and realize I'm not the only human dealing with this stuff, right? Dealing with a relationship and trying to make it work and grow and compromise and sympathize and all this stuff. And my whole point is that when we take the time to figure out that other people are dealing with not the same, but similar stuff, it makes it less, you realize, okay, I have something I can lean on, right? You have people, you have a group that you can now feel supported by.
I'm sorry. I
Not
gotta
put you in
ask.
there.
What?
That's my.
You think most men don't do this though?
Only women. Only women
Hold
always
on.
do this.
No, I don't think most guys talk about.
So why is you think most men don't do that, but you do believe most men ain't gonna be negative or trash?
No. So first of all, I can say that. No.
My question is, we can put men in a certain bucket in one place,
Right.
but not in another place.
No. So let's be accurate with what I'm saying. I do believe most men have to learn to understand the power dynamic that they have, and not to use it blindly in a way that what's the word, oppresses women.
Yes.
I recognize that, right? And that's what, when you said, when a guy has a daughter for the first time, he starts sympathizing. Like, oh, hold on, I don't want this to happen to her.
They find empathy,
Right, I don't want this to happen. That's his first time thinking about it. My issue is, the point is, the way that we raise boys is very different than the way we raise girls. We don't teach boys from the very beginning to be in touch with their feelings, to be vulnerable. We don't teach these type of things.
Well, you prohibit it. Well, we don't teach it to girls either. We just let them do it.
Well, it's not, but it's not accepted for boys.
Yeah.
So I'm saying we prohibit it. That's
Right, that's what she's saying, right? Like,
Yeah.
you just, right, if they start doing it, you shut it down,
Yeah.
Right.
and we let girls do it.
Yeah.
Right.
So
my
I
dad
think
cries all the time.
so
and I've
there-
never seen my mom cry. So
there's I think for
That's why
for
they
guys,
do
it's
it.
something that we have to learn how to do, and that will open us up to be able to sit there and say to another guy, you know what, my wife hurt my feelings, or say to my wife, you hurt my feelings. It takes a while for a guy to learn how to actually say to a woman, you hurt my feelings, because
do
for
men
him
say that
to
to
admit,
other men?
huh?
Do men say that to other
No.
men? Okay.
Mm.
So you should just learn how to say that.
But the point
I
is,
think
how
that's
do we
interesting,
learn?
though. I think
How do we get to that point to understand that it's okay and not to feel like it takes away from our manhood?
yeah.
That's the issue.
I think the problem.
It's in the books.
I think the problem that I have, and I think everything you're saying is great, right? And as a vice principal, I look at my little boys now, and I try to have those same conversations with them because I don't want them to be the men that I see in the world, right? And so I often am like, let's put words to our feelings, right?
Yeah.
Like, you are acting out and angry, right? You're frustrated, but there's something happening here, and we need to put words to our feelings. And I think that is such I'm so surprised because they're so young, and I don't know, and I don't really believe, talking to some of their parents, and like, I don't believe that these are the things that they're learning from their families, right? They're just coming in with this thing here, and they're learning it from somewhere. And so many of these Black boys who are just, I need to fight, I need to do this, I need to do that, and I'm just like, how do we help at such a young age? I'm struggling with that. Like, how do you help these kids be able to use their
That
words and
question right
express
there is-
their feelings?
That question is perfect because that's something that I think most guys think of. It's let me go to the gym and work it out or
Yeah.
play sports. So,
Yes.
like,
Ignore
the
it.
physical,
Avoid it.
like,
This
Manifestation
guy was
of it.
dating. I don't remember what we were arguing about, but I was like, let's pull out the feelings wheel. And I only knew to do this because I chronically ignore my feelings. And my therapist did the same thing. She pulled out some paper from somewhere and was like, what are you feeling? And I was like, I don't know any of these words. I'm like, you're not focused. Like, why are you asking? I'm like, I'm telling you right now, this is what happened. Why are you bringing out this paper? Okay, that was early in therapy. Right now I've evolved. So now I do that to people. And I Google this colorful feelings wheel. And I'm like, point and tell me what you're feeling.
And so you're saying that that's not something that you were taught. It was something
Correct.
that you had to learn for
Yeah.
yourself as an
Yeah.
adult, which
Right.
means that nobody gets
Well,
to pass
I
that.
have 3 little boys. I'm an owner of 3 little boys. and the word you're talking about here is intentionality.
Yeah.
I am very intentional with my boys about stuff like that because I know as when I was raised, my father, I have 3 sisters, is me. My dad was very much like, I'm raising the boy, like the boy is my responsibility, blah, blah, blah. And I love my father, did a good job. far as I'm concerned, I think I came out all right. But I also don't remember being asked at almost any point how I felt about anything, right? I don't remember that. I ask my boys how they feel about stuff all the time. Like when I hurt their feelings, or like if I raise my voice too much. Like parents, you know when you doing too much, but sometimes you lean into it because you like, I gotta get the point out, right? But then you feel bad about it, right? And then it's like, so then I have to go back and then I gotta undo all the stuff that I just did. And I gotta apologize and I have to ask you how this felt. Yeah. It requires a lot of work on my part. Like it requires a complete reframing of how I even view being a father and being a man. Like it's like as I'm trying to make sure they're not like me, I have to think about how I am and how I got here, right? So what you're talking about is it just requires a lot of us to be really intentional with little boys. The problem is, and this is what happened with that little boy who was killed up in Brooklyn. I don't know if you watched his mother's press conference. She's talking about he was the man of the house at 14 years old. Like he was the one that was responsible for taking care of the house. I'm like, that boy had no chance. He has multiple brothers and sisters. She's like, he was the man of the house. I was like, you talking about him like he was like 30.
He was 13. Yeah.
And this is so that wasn't happening there, right? Nobody was in the house telling that boy like, how do you feel? It was go do whatever. Like we need these things. Food, we need stuff or whatever. And she's a young mother herself. And that's I don't know exactly the dynamics. All I know is what I saw on TV. But it seems like we get a lot more of that type of thing. Even from the quote unquote successful family. Like we treat boys like men mad early. Yeah. Like you need to stuff them feelings and all the other stuff.
Your word really helped me prohibit. Right. Yeah, so I definitely understand some of these things aren't necessarily being taught across the board or specifically to women, right? To young girls. But it's definitely being prohibited, right? I don't know if I would feel comfortable walking up to a homeboy, girl broke my heart, crying to him. Yeah. Right? Like that. Just think about that. I mean, imagine
it's a sign of weakness.
It's a sign of weakness.
Panama, you said, and it was like one of my first book clubs, like years ago, whenever, here, and you were like, you say I love you to your friends in the group chat. And I've now made it a point to say I love you, especially to my guy friends. And I ask them, I'm like, do you say that to other people? And they be like, shut up.
Shut up. He's uncomfortable.
But now my best friend from 9th grade, Gerard, says I love you back to me.
Listen, I saw my best friend at the airport yesterday morning when I was flying to Atlanta. Randomly saw this dude in the airport, like, yo, what's up? Because he was in Baltimore, so they ain't like we don't see each other. But we parted ways. Like, why did you get something to eat? I yelled at, yo, I love you, bro. Like when I walked away, and he said the same thing right back. I didn't feel uncomfortable because I'm used to it. Like it's fine.
But at this point, we're 4-year-old men who had.
We've been doing that since we were younger. So look, when I had a serious tragedy happen to me when I was young, they were there for me. I remember the first. Now I will say, I remember the first time this particular friend told me he loved me. Right, we were on the phone. I was crying because I had the murder happened in my family. The only pain that we understand is pain like that, right? Yeah. So I'm on the phone and I'm talking to him, and we up. He's like, "Yo, love you, bro." And I was just like stuck. I was like, "What?" I mean, I love you too.
Like, okay.
But I was like, I'm in tears. But that joint took me the other way. I'm like, "Well, what we talk about now?" I'm like, but it's true. Like he said it, and I appreciated that. I think I needed to hear it, and I said it back, and I was like, that wasn't even that hard. It just caught me off guard. But then, so I tell my boys that all the time. And I still have one friend who, if I say that to, he just, like, his masculinity radar is like, just, this is the problem. Right. Like, love him to death, but this is the dude that's the problem, right? Like, you can't have these conversations with him because he's just like, that ain't what men do. Like, he's that guy. Yeah. But the rest of us can do that, and it's fine, and it doesn't feel uncomfortable or awkward. And maybe it is all these years of doing it, but I can do that out loud and not feel uncomfortable with it. Like I do it in a room full of people because I mean it. Like I don't want to not say it to this dude that I genuinely love who's been there for me. You know what I'm saying? So I think I'm just evolved. Yeah, in some ways.
I think it is. I know. I remember this for the rest of my life. My grandma was no longer here with us. I remember I was down here. My grandma lived down here in Southeast. Well, I'm going Southeast, but across the street. I was over there waiting for my parents to come pick us up one night, and we were having this conversation. I guess she just got a phone from my uncle, and he turned his life around. And she said to me, she was like, "Your uncle did not become a man until he turned 30." And that resonated with me deeply. That if, like, my grandmother, the sweetest person in the world, says this about her son,
Right.
I'm sorry, can you repeat what she said?
she said he did not become a man until he turned 30. And as a teenager, I think maybe a preteen at that point, like that really sat with me, that a mother say that about her son. Like, I never wanted that to be said about me. And I think what it was one of the first times starting to realize how differently men have to start maturing earlier. And there's some of these things that we don't do because we think it makes us weak, that prevents us from maturing earlier, right? So it's something in how we teach young boys not to prohibit some of these things, to be more intentional in using your words, right? And I think, to bring it back to the book, part of their issue, what was it? Who said the legacy thing? Was it Rihanna or?
She was on that side.
Yeah, about men. If their son is gay, it's an attack on your legacy, right? But instead of, using your words to say, how does this make me feel? As a parent, you always go through an adjustment when your child does not turn out to be what you've envisioned them, right? Fantasize, when they make their own choices, and I want to live my life this way, right? I'm not going to be a doctor. I'm going to be a teacher. I'm not going to be a teacher. I'm going to be whatever. I'm going to move to a different state. Right? We have to adjust. And they evidently did not adjust to their sons not being with women. Right? And it's an issue of it's a maturity thing. It takes time. So I hear what everyone is saying, and I agree. I just get a little caught off at the thing that I did to you ladies, so I apologize, of lumping everybody together. But, I think it's a human thing that it will just allow us to be more empathetic to other people.
I think, but for us though, we always say in America, when America gets a cold, we get the flu. Things that happen in our own community are magnified that much more. We really don't have time to not care about each other based on our other identities.
Amen.
Right?
Absolutely.
There's really just no space for that. Like, we absolutely have to take care of our Black LGBTQ members. We have to take care of our Black differently abled, our Black women. Because if we don't, we are not going to move.
Right.
We're just not. And so I think sometimes we have these conversations, and like you said, I'm sure you ask Asian women, all the other people about kind of like these kind of like things in their communities, they will have some things similar to say. But the history of Black Americans makes the conversation for us so much different. And the weight of it all, that like, we don't even have time to talk about other people, really, when it comes to dealing with things in our own community.
I'm just been kind of listening. But it's a quote in the book, and I'm paraphrasing, but it was something along the lines of how many chances does a man get before fate decides that it's too late? Something like that. And it kind of hit because even reading the book, like being from Oklahoma and realizing that this is in Richmond, I'm like, okay, this is Oklahoma. These are my, Ike is my. I've heard all these conversations in the barbershop. This is literally my father and my uncles having. I've heard all these conversations. And even within the past maybe 6 months, I've experienced two deaths in the family. And one of the things that's really irritating for me being in that space is hearing that same narrative where, man, we got to do better, man. I didn't get a chance to talk to, and I wish I could have, and could have, should have, would have, and all of these things. And even having family members that are different, and there being this challenge of accepting different, and then it's too late when somebody is no longer with us. It just really hit. And I think for me, like reading this book, it was very triggering in a lot of ways, because outside of the LGBTQ thing, it's just for my family and from what I experience in my immediate space, we always wait until it's too late.
Yeah.
You
And then
know?
we want to do something about it.
Right. And so
And
for
that's the
me,
thing.
like
Mhm.
with Ike, it's like I want to empathize with him, but you know, this is a lot of people that I know.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so I don't know, this whole thing about intentionality, you know, I mean, we're not intentional. I mean, we know I would like to think that we know what the problem is, or I would like to think that we know that, you know, we can and should do better, but
I mean, that's the thing, right? Knowing better and doing better are two completely different things.
Yeah.
And I think that's what everybody struggles with. Like that's kind of the heart of this, right?
Yeah.
You know better. They've had these thoughts, they couldn't get over them, but
Yeah.
when it's too late, now they're trying to make up for it by, you know, righting the wrong, which doesn't change anything. The boys are still gone, right? They still have their laws, but you know.
I mean, he's trying with I guess not just Tangi, but also the granddaughter. You know? Like, you know, at the end he talks about, you know, like, yeah, we're doing this for her and she's doing this, and like he's there, you know. So I guess he's trying to right around, and we've seen that a million times. I saw it with my dad and his grandkids, and you know, and later on having additional kids and additional families, and you know, my grandfather and us, and so we see it every generation. It was triggering, to say the least. But also to your point about being in the bubble, I thought that was interesting because I would like to think that, you know, I'm somewhat evolved, but I always have to go back home. And then I realized, man, DC is such a bubble.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it is.
I forgot I'm from Oklahoma sometimes, you know? And I got a code switch again because I got to speak another language, speak another language, or try to connect in a different way because triggered.
Yeah.
You know?
Do you ever feel privileged when you remember that where you're from, or when you can see that you are in a bubble?
Absolutely, absolutely, and I think I don't have to think that because I feel like they tell me that a lot. You know, I'm the one that didn't come back home.
Yeah.
So when you say DC in a bubble, what is that bubble to you?
What is that bubble?
Yeah, is it like a bubble of privilege, a bubble of what?
Education.
Education. What is
Access.
it?
I'm traditional first generation college.
Right.
So for me, from my perspective, DC, what I experience here in DC, I don't get back at home. This young Black professional, seeing movers and shakers, young, educated, or even just being openness to experience, right? So we're just willing to step outside of my bubble and try new things, whether it's foods or travel or any of those things versus going back home for an extended period of time a week. And then,
Barely.
and wanted to do something with my cousins, like, man, we ain't got no hookah bar, or is there something to do? It's like hookah, or you know, like you like just get up on this, you know, Paul and Son or whatever. It's like, oh, I'm gonna go get us a bottle, and I, you know, buy a bottle. It's like it's that bougie bourbon. I'm like, it's not gonna make your head hurt. You know? But it's just like, you know. But now I'm, you know, I can be looked at as brand new because you know,
Different experience.
new openness to experience. So I guess that's kind of what I mean.
Not
when
keeping
it's,
it real.
yeah.
I
So-
mean,
But I think that goes back to your word of prohibit, because when we talk about intentionality and we talk about the conversations we're having, these are not uneducated men, you know, but it's almost like they prohibit each other, or they want to stay in this in their way of thinking. Like they don't want to challenge themselves. They don't want to pull out a feelings wheel. They don't want to evolve in their self-awareness or ask each other these questions. Just like you have your friend that you say, I love you. And he's like, chill. You know, like that is, he's literally putting up a wall on purpose. And when he loves you, like if you ask him if anything happened to you, he is gonna break his heart. Like he loves you, but he's prohibiting himself from experiencing that, or saying that, or prohibiting you from experiencing that. Like he just won't you know, and that's the problem is like, how difficult would that be to step outside of your box and chat? Yeah.
But I think what we think about even the Isaiah and Derek taught us something very important around the way America makes you earn humanity if you're not white and male, right? And so Black women have to earn our femininity.
Yeah.
Black men have to earn their masculinity. They don't get to just be men because they say they are.
Yeah.
Right. And so when you have to earn something, you can't just stop going to work. You're earning now, but if you stop going to work, what happens? You don't have no paycheck. Right. So it's a constant thing of like earning it. And depending on how sensitive that person is, how much they have to earn their humanity is going to dictate how willing they are to open themselves up to challenging who they are. Because it's like, I do love you. I love you deeply, bro. But like, what will happen if I like utter it or like open myself up to be vulnerable? Will it just like turn into a faucet? Like and now I'm just like running out to everybody they love me, right? Or that I love them. And as women, and everybody knows I'm team Black feminism. But as women, we have to also own the way that we perpetuate we do hypermasculinity, particularly in Black men. We reinforce
He gotta have money. He gotta do this. He gotta
be able to like protect you or like fight whatever, right? And what it's like at these songs, if you on a third date with buddy, he start crying at the table, you can look at him like
Sorry.
And I have dated a million criers.
But my point is that, and we're talking about in maths, right? I wouldn't do that, but I'm like right and evolved, right?
Yeah.
But the girl I went to high school with absolutely would be like, girl, he was crying at the table, like, love, right? So
I'm having flashbacks.
Right, and so I think
Why you got multiple criers though? Like,
so many criers. I think it's because I'm not. Because it's the opposite of me, right? So that's how I ended up.
And I think what she's saying, even with Black men, Black women, whatever, any of us probably, if you think about something how you want your life to be different in any area, to do it is not that easy.
Yeah.
It's just not. And your brain will be like, I need to do this. I need to do this. You know it. You're being convicted, especially once you made up your mind you want a different type of life. But it still ain't easy to do. Like you're saying with your friend, he probably in his mind think, I'm gonna say I love you next time, maybe. But it's easier to say like I'm not an I love you person. For me to do that, like my sister say I love you, it'd be like, I'm like him. I'd be like, okay, I love you. I would try to say it, hang up with. I just ain't that person.
It's not true.
But I'm trying to be that person, if that makes sense. But even me wanting to be that person is still not an easy thing. Yeah. Some people make it easier for me to say, I love you. You know, something about them makes that easier. But with my family, I'm just not. We just, we're coming to that, but we're not there.
I'm not a hugger. And me and my sister, one time we were like, should we start hugging? Like, we legit, because we're not huggers. Like, my girlfriends will see me. I'm like, I just saw you. Like, why are we hugging? Like, and she will hug me. Yeah. And so I was telling my sister actually brought it up to me. She's like, do you hug your friends? I'm like, it's more like they hug me. And I just, I don't push them, I just kind of, but she's like, should we start hugging? I'm like, we can, like, do you want to, and this is a real conversation. Like, I'm like, do you want to hug? And she's like, do you want to hug? And I'm like, nah. And we haven't hugged. So yeah, like, I
mean, there's certain elements to this that is just like your personality. And that's fine. There's no issue with it. I find that extremely funny. Like, should we hug?
Well, that's funny because, when I got to college, like the group of friends that I had were huggers, but I didn't grow up. Like I never experienced. I was like, why is everybody hugging so much?
Right.
Like I genuinely was curious. Like, is this just what people do other places?
Right.
I come from the one place in America where nobody does this. It was very interesting. But now, because of just I see people, I hug people. I don't think nothing of it.
There's science behind hugs.
Yeah,
truly there is. So everyone, when you go home, make sure you hug someone.
I love hugging.
Because hugging spreads the endorphins between the people. And it really does help your heart rate, and that's why they hire people with the newborn babies to like put them on.
I say my kids are huggers, boy. Them little kids.
Yeah, keep hugging.
I'm not gonna prohibit them, right?
One day they're gonna
That's what I'm about to say. My baby is now 18, so no longer a baby.
You missed your
and,
hugs.
oh my God, please come give me a hug.
My daughter's still in that. She's 14. She still does that. So
You know, I went
for him
to.
getting big.
They gave me a side hug at their concert.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's progress. Yeah,
And it was in front of their friends.
Yeah.
So I really won. You know,
Yeah.
shit.
Good
Well,
job.
my daughter thinks I'm cool, so she will let me be like what. My kids like to pretend that I'm very important. Like my son tells everybody I'm a DJ, so when I walk in school, he walks in like, my dad is Panama Jackson. My dad right here. So that's a little kid. And so this is actually really funny. So I had to DJ like their
Oh my God.
little
Then
assembly. They had like a Black History Month thing, and I was the DJ for it. Boy, you would have thought I was Obama in that bad boy. That little kid was like, "You are a DJ?"
That is
I was
so
like,
cute.
"So wait, kids think DJs are cool?" So
Yeah,
they saw the little kid walking up to me. Is this easy?
Is this easy?
Can I do this? I was like, "You can do anything you want. You want to be a DJ?" And I'm like, so
This was a
listen.
6-week class.
At the end of the video, like, shout out to this one right over here, you know? I was like, wow, so my kids love me. They're like, yo, my dad right here, this was the famous one over here.
I love it.
So I hope they can keep that up for a while. They're going to get over you pretty soon, I know, but
yeah.
we'll try to milk this for as long as possible.
I'm just trying to be funny again. That's all. My jokes are tired.
That's your goal.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get back to being a funny
Parents'
person.
jokes are never funny.
I think they're hilarious. I think I'm a laugh of it anyway. But yeah, I think this was a very it seemed like we kind of got off of the topic, but
I think it's all
no, that's what I'm saying.
the book.
It definitely comes back. I think so what was the word I had in my head? It was golly, this book is a cautionary tale.
Yes.
That's what I was
Yes.
saying. A warning.
Yes,
Yes.
cautionary tale in that, again, it's loving the people who you're with, right? For whoever they are. Because like what Christine said, I got her name right this time, right? I just want him here. Like I'd much rather him be here with me, no matter who he loves. I just need him here with me now, versus trying to avenge their death, right? So
Yeah.
at the end of it, so I don't know. So even for the people who this is not their genre book, right? Would you recommend it to someone else?
Oh,
I already know I'm gonna listen to my cousin. I sent him not the binding room, the Jigsaw Man.
Yes.
And he was like so into it, like really upset about what's going on. So I feel like he might really like this too. So.
I have a coworker, young white girl, and she's a reader too. And I'm always like, Cassie, what are you reading? And she's like, Nicole, and we're never reading the same books. And I never even know her books. She never knows my books. This week, because we only go in the office once a week. So this is our like weekly, coffee conversation. This week, she's like, what are you reading? And I'm like, I'm reading Razorblade Tears. And she's like, oh, I heard about that.
Because look at the cover.
Cassie knew about it.
Like 5 heartbeats, huh?
Well, Cassie knew about it.
Yes,
She
it's
said
Razorback Tears. We don't read them books.
What?
That title.
Razorblade.
Razorblade. That title, that cover. Right.
You think it's on purpose?
Oh, yeah. No, I don't know.
Well, I think that's the back. Tell you that's the back where they obliterating people. They walk right.
Yeah.
It's the
But
style.
I can see a white girl being in Barnes and Noble like, oh
Definitely
my
has a
God.
Jack
this is
London
interesting.
feel to it, like just a very rustic,
What? This
Yeah,
is
this
awesome.
definitely doesn't represent them at all.
No.
It does.
Yeah, there need to be some like
That's a
Uzis and
crossover
Mac
book,
11. There need to be some like guns
Or
and-
that snatcher thing that
I wouldn't pick that up.
Right.
Have y'all seen the cover for that book? Like it's like Obama and Biden like in a car driving like I can't remember the name of this book. That would be more appropriate cover for this. Like they're in like the car like what up? It's a real book. Yeah, it's a.
So I can see a white girl like, oh yes, I've heard of that book. Yeah.
But also it takes races, right? The underlying racial part of it, so probably why.
Yeah, that's why.
I feel like this would be a great movie. There's this movie
I hope
with
it becomes
Denzel Washington and Mark Wahlberg where they kind of go on like
Oh yeah,
a kind
Two
of-
Guns?
it was on
Two
Netflix.
Guns.
Yeah.
I tried to watch it. I couldn't get into it. Did you
Man, I love that movie. It's so bad.
It's
That's
so
so
bad.
wonderfully
I could
terrible.
not get into it.
Right.
It's so unbelievable. You can could tell Mark Wahlberg was like, this movie sucks, guys. I'm gonna have so much fun.
Especially
Like,
the ending part,
oh,
like
yeah.
it was
Yeah,
terrible.
So
I would
nonsense.
watch it on Netflix.
This should do much better than that. That's why I said that.
I thought as I was reading this, and I hesitated. I was like, all right, I'm not gonna say it's a book club because I know where this conversation is gonna go. And I was like, who would play this? Who would play? And we're not talking about who would produce it. We're not talking about who would produce it. We're not talking about who would write it. But what I was thinking about is who would play it.
Yes.
And one of my favorite Denzel movies is Man on Fire. When
Yeah.
he goes and like you were talking about how Riot is killing it. He's so good. And one of the quotes from that movie, he's like, Creasy, he was like, you know, everyone's an artist, right? A chef is an artist with their food, XYZ, and was like, Creasy's art is death, and he's about to paint his masterpiece. And that is what I felt like in this book.
You see Denzel?
was-
Oh yeah.
I see Ving Rhames.
Ving Rhames.
I see Ving.
No, he's too.
Denzel don't give me country at all. Ving Rhames
But
gives
Ving
me
Rhames
country.
doesn't give me the. I
Word.
wouldn't believe that he became refined. I would
Yeah.
Have y'all seen Baby Boy? Ving Rhames was a
But
former gang member turned.
There was
He talks about guns and butter.
Right.
Yes, he speeches about
Have a
guns
good
and
night.
butter.
But he was more goofy. Like
But have you ever heard Ving Rhames actually speak?
Right.
You think Ving Rhames is too refined?
no, he's not the goofy OG.
Oh, you know what? No, hold on.
Ving
Ving
Rhames.
Rhames and Mission Impossible. He plays Mission Impossible, right? I can see him. Yeah.
I'm thinking of like big, stocky black man like Denzel is.
I was thinking, what's his name? Coleman Domingo.
Oh, I can kind of see that.
What about the guy from
I can't remember his name, but the guy in Creed 3.
No,
Yahya Mateen. Yeah. He's not old enough. This dude has been in jail
I
for
think
15 years. Like, that's the problem.
Well, we were talking about Jonathan Majors.
He's somebody who's old. That's why I said Ving Rhames because he's old.
But if you look at Denzel in Man on Fire, and even what's those movies, the weird movies where
Equalizer.
yes, okay, but then who's the? Oh, well, then I like Gerard Butler. That's my killer white guy.
But he would have been
Well, he needs to
to
be, he needs to be
He's
smaller.
funny too. He got to be funny.
Okay, so then who's Buddy Lee?
I don't know.
Go ahead.
Actually, I'm still.
Oh, okay.
Still.
So we've been kind of talking about the book in the week, and so Rad was like Al Bundy, and ever since she said
That is so
I
good.
couldn't see it. Every time like he's
That is
talking,
so
I'm putting the
good.
script to Al Bundy.
Wait a minute. Now I gotta look.
Because you have the comedic,
Yeah.
the dry comedy.
No, I know who. Woody Harrelson.
Yes. Oh, I like Woody
That's
Harrelson.
it.
Yeah.
But he's not skinny. He would have to be.
No, he would. He could be.
He could be a little
He could
bit
slow
slow.
down a little bit.
Yeah.
So wait, this is Wesley Snipes and Woody Harrelson. This is white.
No.
Dude, y'all just seen Wesley Snipes in the preview for the new movie they got coming out?
Yeah.
He's old with the gray and all the stuff. Like,
No.
What was his name you just said?
Woody Harrelson.
Al Bundy.
Al Bundy.
Yeah,
Woody
yeah.
Harrelson would be great.
Oh, Al Bundy. He's the dad. He's grandpa from
He's the dad from.
Modern Family.
Yeah, Al Bundy.
Yeah, it's Al Bundy.
Al Bundy.
I was about to say he's done other things.
Yeah, I think Al Bundy would be a good fit.
Yeah.
He got it. Yeah, I would like to see that. Someone get these rights. Where SA, you watching it?
I
I find it hard to believe that the rights ain't already sold. Like, somebody got to have
I
one
feel
up
like
already.
it felt like it was like a screenplay, like the way they
Yeah,
described
The
certain
timing
things.
of the chapters, too.
Yeah.
The chapters were
Like,
really
this
short.
feels like it's a movie waiting to happen.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
And like a blockbuster movie, not some like independent, like how they did that movie. What's the
Not some Tyler Perry studio.
I didn't even say that. See, I
We almost made it to the end.
what's the remember there was like that Twitter thread of the young black girl and the white girl and all that stuff they made into a movie?
Oh,
Which no. It has
Florida.
Right, yeah.
the Twitter,
story.
but it has what's Coleman Domingo's in that movie.
Yeah.
But anyway, like that they ruined that story by making it an indie black movie.
Yeah.
That movie was so bad.
Yeah.
And it had Blockbuster all over it. This was this needs to be a blockbuster. Like, this is a blockbuster
I felt
money
like I was
train.
reading Rush Hour.
Like, you know, this
Yeah.
got that feel to it.
It does.
Less comedy though. Less comedy.
Yeah.
No,
it was very straightforward.
dry.
It
It
was
was
dry.
dry.
No. I'm saying when I was reading it, it felt like I was reading Rush Hour, but not as funny.
Oh, right.
Like, I would love for this to be hilarious. I like a movie.
Hold on, you're the writer, right?
I'm gonna check.
Right.
Okay, but we're in the middle of streaming right now.
Make sure that anybody realizes fully this. All right, before I go on live stream, it's G-Rod, Struggle Real Still. Sounds like an interesting book about some people getting killed and then the revenge wanting. I really did get pushed to suicide and threw blood at officers and stuff on false charges. And everything's still going on.
All right, we appreciate
Whether
it.
it's 2722 or 2700, and it changes, bro. I got video as well as proof.
All right,
There's
thank you.
real things going on. And I'm as woke as I can be, my man.
All right, thank you.
Not shade, bro.
Cosby.
I'm mad he interrupted like
I
that.
thought we made it.
So
Me
Derek,
too.
Okay.
are we still streaming?
Yes. So anyway, last comments because we still technically had a lot of time. Derek, I haven't heard you talk from the comment section. Any exciting last minute comments?
Out. Yeah, I saw somebody mention the Buddy Lee fan club in here. I was like,
Yeah, so
But
we
we do
have.
need the comedic
Oh, we
timing.
have
I think
comments.
Buddy
We have
Lee's-
comments.
Yeah, we
Oh,
have.
yeah, there are
some
some
comments.
comments.
So we have Chandra Hilburn. Said Buddy Lee fan club, sign me up for a lifetime membership. He's in the top 5 with my favorite literary characters in 2022.
he would be fun. That's why you gotta get the right person to play with him.
Right.
Olivia Hill says the conversation about this book and it leading into the deeper conversation about our large community of Black lives is powerful. It's a conversation I'm lifting up constantly, but often met with silence and side eyes. These issues of how we deal with each other are the most important conversations we can have. Conversations about our truths and who we are and how many slices are being cut away from the proverbial black cake. Thank you. This was fire for me. And KCMO, I don't know what that means.
Casey Moe, Kansas City, Missouri.
Oh, okay. Yeah, see, I'm not an internet person. Okay.
Yes,
Yeah, it's on Facebook. The ladies in my Melissa says the ladies in my book club read that book and loved it. Yeah, and someone called me Ramunda. They said Ramunda and Panama are dope. That's why I was laughing. I was like,
That was the comment earlier where you said my wife's crazy.
No, but it's I get Ramunda all the time. I'm Ramunda's husband. Okay, so that's the life I lead. But yeah, so I'll say this: I enjoyed the book. I enjoyed it. It was definitely a gritty book. I leave it at that for me.
I mean, I tell everybody to read it. Like I told you, it started slow for me, but when it got going, I was 100% on board. Because I told you that when
I was gonna say, weren't you gonna say something and then you passed it to me earlier when you were like, you're surprised that a lot of people say that they really like it or something?
Yeah, because so that's where I started with. Like everybody was, man, what was I saying? Like originally, I was surprised that all these people told me they like this book because I started out so slow. So even when I talked to you about it before, I was like, this book is just slow. Like I'm not enjoying it. But then it took off. Like it hit chapter 7, and this joint was like off to the races. And I couldn't put it down after that. I was like, and because it wasn't. That's what I say, metaphors and all this stuff. Nah, this was like the action. This was like get to it. Like we about to go murder. This is murder, mayhem, and revenge,
And anarchy.
and anarchy, and we got racists, we got rappers, we got like nightclub scenes, we got like everybody's represented.
He never went back to Buddy who sold him out, who tried to get him killed.
Oh yeah.
He never went back to him. I wanted him to come back to
And
him.
then Ryan went and killed Slice at the end, right? Like he like Spice.
He definitely said Slice went missing.
Because Slice went and told her who were they listen.
It was good.
Which was not necessary, by the way. Ryan, when he did that after they finished the job, Ryan went back like, you know what? This is
Because he
personal.
realized that
This is personal. You done try to get me and my family killed, so I got to kill you. Like it's very business for him. Yeah, so that's what I was saying. Like I originally, by the time that I had talked to you, like it was,
That was like a couple weeks.
I wasn't in love with it, and then by the time I finished it, I needed to know how it ended. Like I had to get to the end of this book. I needed to know where this joint ends. So I would definitely recommend this to people. Everybody that told me to read this, I got to be like, yeah, y'all were right. I get it. So now I'm gonna read it. I want to read Blacktop Wasteland.
Okay.
What,
He has
that's
a
his
new
other
book
book?
coming out in June called All the Sinners Bleed. So
Wow.
that one.
So it's just
So doing another.
I'm here for it. I'm into it. I'm here for all of it.
And we're gonna pick that one.
Okay, I
And
just
you
want to
have
make
to-
sure there's an editor though. That's my
Yeah,
only
yeah.
thing. I want to investigate
Caught
what happened.
mistakes in other books.
No, I really have a question
And
about
you
what
didn't
happened.
hate
We had that conversation, right? About
What
how
was
many
the
mistakes we keep finding in books.
I write it down. I'm like, what is going on here?
Circle like
Yes.
repeat.
I'm like so confused.
So you know what? And I get a lot of like ARCs from like friends of mine who have books. And I've been going through like, yo, this is a problem here. This was, you know. And I remember the Justin Tinsley, the person that did his audiobook. So I read that book and I listened to it, and I told him the person who is doing your audiobook is mispronouncing words and stuff. Like they mispronouncing stuff like. And like I called him on the side about that. I was like, bro, like this guy. And I came, whatever it was, he mispronounced something that was like important. And like stuff like that bothers me because again, that's nonfiction, right? This is these are like facts. Somebody's gonna take these facts and run with it and go wrong with it. And I remember Tiffany Jackson mentioned that, right? About the book, Let Me Hear It Rhyme, whatever, about how it's important to get those things right because you know this might be the only foray somebody has into this world.
And even though that was a fiction book, it had to have.
Yeah, there was like facts about hip hop and stuff like that in there, which is why it was my issue
That's
with
the same book that
the.
Tupac and Biggie 6.
No, this is a different book. Why somebody
You did
who
a
I
great job
respect
with that.
greatly.
Please check it out.
That question.
Somebody Tiffany Jackson.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was a
that
great.
The book I'll go ahead and say because so we read this is like 2019, The Miseducation of Lauren. It's a book about She Begat This.
Oh.
Yeah.
By Joan Morgan, who wrote The Chicken Heads Come Home to Roost.
Yeah.
And I read it and I found several factual inaccuracies, and I was like, "This is crazy."
But when I went to listen to her speak about this book, and she said she wrote it in like a week. I'm like, yeah, we can tell. Like she literally said, like, I mean, it was obviously you see I'm annoyed by the whole thing, but yeah, like she literally said she wrote the book in like 2 weeks. She didn't. I don't know if I don't want to say she didn't want to write it, but she did say like they kept having to push her and push her and push her and push her, and then like she
just sat down
and knocked it out,
And
it showed.
But see, that fact should have been checked by an editor. So even if you get that wrong, there some editor should be reading through this and should because again, you don't even need to be a huge hip hop fan to know that. Like that's just wrong. Like Biggie and Pac, like those are like you can Google that, right? It's literally if you Google Tupac or Biggie, that's like one of the first sentences that pops up in all their stuff. So the fact that made it through, and there was some other stuff in there that was wrong about like D'Angelo, like the making of voodoo and stuff like that.
Editor who didn't really know the topic at all.
Which is so that's when we had that conversation. We ended up talking about how the editors and these processes, how like it's important to have an editor that knows what they're talking about or is familiar with, you know, because if they're not line editing, like fact checking every single thing, then they're looking at this like, well, I assume you got it right. Which is what happens a lot when you don't have a big budget for editors. Like everything I write, I have to make sure the facts are right because we don't have fact checkers that are going back behind me. So I got to make sure everything that I'm saying is correct so that I don't get, you know, and the thing about me, like if I write something crazy, somebody's going to call me on it. Like they're not going to be like the real man. They're like Panama Jackson, an idiot. He out here getting things wrong. So I got to make sure I'm right on that stuff. But in books, it does annoy me. So I'm with you on that. But
we'll hope for the best.
But there was enough murder in here to make up for it. So I was good. Like that's it.
Well, I didn't finish it. I'm like 2/3 of the way through. I'm gonna go ahead and finish it.
Yeah.
We done gone through all this stuff.
It's
Yeah.
okay. I'm gonna go ahead and finish it. The same thing happened with one of the, maybe 3 or 4 books ago. I went back and went ahead and just finished, even though we had talked about it here. But I just looked at the length of this one, and this one is crazy short.
Reads. You can read this book. I promise you, in like a day.
Really?
It's such a quick read. So I've read that book already. She's a friend of mine. It's actually really, really good. Like when I got it, I wasn't sure what to expect.
I just feel like he didn't even introduce it.
Right. So I'm asking cameraman to zoom in, but we don't have one.
Right.
Hey, is that worth buying? I mean,
Oh Lord, yes.
I never mind.
Yes, as from a bookseller, yes.
Yes.
No, I'm right.
My question answers always be yes. So our March book that we kicked off March 1 is Ride or Die, a feminist manifesto for the well-being of Black women by Shanita Hubbard. It was chosen by our homie here, Panama. So I'll let him talk about why he chose this book.
Yeah, so a couple reasons. One, this book is both it's like hip hop centric. So it's Women's Month, right? So we make sure we get, make sure we pick the book by a woman. And I read this book and I really enjoyed it. Like it uses hip hop kind of as its focus, but it's not like a hip hop book. Like it talks about all these like scenarios in life that like using music and hip hop as a backdrop. And as somebody who uses hip hop as a backdrop for a lot of the things that I write about and do, I really enjoyed that. And it's a quick read, it's short, but it's a lot of stuff to talk about. Like you talk about like books that give you ammunition and things to talk about. This book is that. Every chapter is some different version of looking at like the way the world works, but through the lens of like hip hop, like in the way that like how we're talking about the way we raise people, kids and stuff like that. A lot of that stuff is in it, like how people are raised and how they approach like their sexism and all that. It's a lot. It's a really good book. Like I genuinely, I know her, but even if I didn't know her, I would think it was a good book. And, I really enjoyed it. So I think it's a quick read. Like I read that joint literally in like a day. Like I went through it and I was just like, and I'm going to read it again for the conversation. Like I'm willing to read the book again.
Do you think this is a generational read? Like, do you think a woman of Gen X will have a different view, or before we have a different view of this book or content from a woman what's after Gen X? I don't know. Millennial and down. I just wondering.
I think that despite the fact that a lot of the references are probably our references, right? Like she's my age, if not maybe a little bit older. I could be wrong on that. I don't want to age the young lady, but I do think the themes, like the hip hop, the focus point is just the entryway. Mm-hmm. The themes are very like omnipresent. They're very universal themes. That was my takeaway from it. Okay. So I think anybody can read this. Like I would give it to my daughter to read, to take, to kind of, and I think she could get something out of it.
Okay. Okay. All right. Cool. Well, that's our March book. We will be back here on April
7th.
April's.
Isn't that crazy?
Please
Don't start.
Let's talk about being here in April, like before you know it, it's like,
hey, please don't. Come on, bro.
I won't be April 7th.
Yeah. So April 7th, 6 to 8 p.m. We're going to be back here at the Anacostia location in Southeast DC. And of course, everyone will be streaming live to both Facebook and YouTube because I'm somewhat getting better at this live stream stuff. So check us out.
Yeah, air horn.
Right.
You
You the DJ?
I didn't know I needed the air horn when I got here. Like I'll bring it next time.
So and next time we're going to have Panama on the 1 and 2s, bringing in the book club and
DJ Derek
And there's a
opening him up.
DJ.
So
Wine and DJ.
We used to have wine. We had wine and drinks and all kinds of stuff.
Actually,
I thought about the wine.
We used to go buy stuff before we go. Like we go make a liquor run.
Hey,
I'll bring my bottle. Yeah.
we're gonna bring some.
We just need the permit.
Yeah.
Let me check the building again because I'd definitely be happy to bring some Nair's through.
Oh, Uncle Nearest.
Yeah, we can enjoy.
We used to do the wine.
Huh? Yeah, we did.
We said wine.
You bring that.
I'll bring
crazy.
Bye, family. See you next time.
Oh,
Peace
you're
out.
See?
And remember, Black Books Matter.
Yes. All right. Take care, guys.
Is that Andy? Somebody just sent me a picture of it.
I see y'all.
And that part is my
That's
y'all.
scary.